Heading into the first international break of this championship season, this is how the championship table is currently lining up. As a Preston fan, I have to admit, I'm pretty happy. What a weekend of championship football we've just experienced. We're back again to talk through it all. I've asked you guys on the community tab to give your opinions on the matches that you've seen this weekend. And in today's video, we're going to be going over some of those comments. As always, do get your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you do go on to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like. 300 likes would be massively appreciated. But without any further ado, let's just jump in. Mark, who's a Sunderland fan, says, what can I say? Absolutely fantastic from start to finish. Can someone check on Ross Stewart for me to see if he's okay? Absolutely brilliant stuff from Sunderland here, and a real statement performance in the end by Tony Mowbray's men, because up until this point it had been a little bit of a frustrating start to the season for Sunderland. You could see what they were trying to do with a lot of their performances, but they just didn't have that clinical nature about them. That script was completely flipped on its head in this game, because like Mark says there, from start to finish Sunderland were absolutely ruthless in this game. Jack Clark getting off the mark almost instantly, and from that point onwards this Southampton side just seemed to shrink defensively. Ekwah absolutely brilliant in the middle for Sunderland. Dak getting off the mark was massive, and obviously Rigg to get that goal in at the end was a great moment for him too. From a Southampton perspective, quite a few red flags popping up in this game. The quality chances they conceded, obviously they bossed the ball as we all expect them to, but even in games prior to this they had been guilty of giving up some big chances. Before this game, conceding an average of 13.4 shots against them. Mason Holgate not covering himself in glory in his Southampton debut, and I also think that Kevin Bazunu won't want to watch a few of those goals back as well. After the international break, I'm expecting Taylor Howard-Bellis to be thrown straight into that Saints defence. I think he could make the world of difference. But from a Sunderland perspective, that right there was the sort of template performance that makes me think, yeah, this side really now could be back and back up there challenging for the top six again. Matty, who's a Birmingham fan, says solid. We limited Millwall to very few chances and a strong performance. Good time for the international break for players to bed into the team and work. Very happy with a point, although it should have been more really. However, given where we are, very happy to be unbeaten so far. And I think that's a balanced take coming out of that Blues game really. It was Millwall who took the lead in this one. Kevin Nisbet, not only a threat from open play but also from free kicks, it would seem. Really maybe a bit disappointed with that one given he got a hand to it, but well taken free kick nonetheless. And from that point, Blues responded well, had a brilliant chance to get back into it via the penalty spot, but Sarkic was level to that, and in the second half it was ultimately Stansfield who made the difference for Birmingham. Another real quality finish, and from the short bursts and clips that I've seen of him so far, he's looked absolutely fantastic in the Birmingham shirt, not just for the goals he's chipped in with so far, but how he brings others into play, how dynamic he looks. He can drop a shoulder, go past someone. So yeah, overall I think a point. Both teams will be fairly happy coming out of that one, with Birmingham edging the XG, but obviously the penalty will have contributed to that quite significantly. So overall, not the worst result there, and a solid point for each side heading into the international break. Tips, who's a Bristol City fan, says over the moon with our performance at Swansea, and yeah, have to admit, from a Bristol City perspective, I've liked what I've seen over the last couple of matches. Thought they got quite unlucky in that game last time out against Hull not to win that one with the amount of chances they crafted out, and came back from behind to beat Swansea in this one with two quite quick fire goals in the second half from Mark Sykes and Sam Bell. From a Swansea perspective, it's all been quite frustrating so far this season. Yet to win a match, only 1 point on the board, and while it is still early days under Michael Duff, there have been some alarming red flags which have started to crop up, especially when you consider that we're going to be going into an international break now, and immediately after that, into that international break, it's the South Wales derby between Cardiff and Swansea not exactly coming into that game with the most momentum. Good stuff by Bristol City once again though, creating an XG of over 2 goals, which I think is great. And now up to 8th in the table as well, bit of positive momentum back there now. Ruthless attacking in a mad 3-3 draw at Coventry. Nerves getting to both sides, committing 2 bad passes. Overall, the best game of the weekend behind Ipswich and Sunderland. Crazy scenes. I mean, this game had just about everything. A penalty miss, a spectacular free kick being scored. Watford taking the lead 3 times in this match, only for Coventry to respond absolutely every time. And yeah, considering this was a Watford side who had failed to score in their last 3 championship matches, it was only right that they were involved in a 6 6-goal thriller this weekend in the Championship. Off the ball, you can definitely see what this Valérien Ismaël side is trying to do. It's just those individual mistakes which are letting them down, particularly defensively right now. But to take the lead 3 times in this game against a good Cov side shows the potential promise to come from this Watford team. Radjovic with a couple of goals. Tom Ince looked quite lively from a creative aspect on that right hand side as well. But fair play to Coventry for carry on plugging away and getting back in there to level the scoreline up each time. Defensively, both sides did look a little bit slack, and as the comment said there, individual errors leading to a few of the goals. But what a way to leave it before the international break. Ben, who's a Cardiff fan, says played brilliantly until Ipswich's first goal, then just like Leeds we blew our 2-goal lead. Lots of positives to take away from it though. We are such a threat going forward away from home. Yeah, there were a few positives to pick out there from a Cardiff perspective. Like Ben picks out there, definitely starting to see some good combinations coming in from Cardiff in the final third where they do look a threat, especially on transitions and with some of those new players starting to really bed in and fan their feet at Cardiff. On the flip side of that, the first thing I thought of when I saw this result and how the game unfolded was Cardiff's opening day performance against Leeds, and could we start to question this Cardiff squad maybe having a bit of a soft underbelly? Obviously the 2-goal lead they gave up at Leeds, now this one against Ipswich, they conceded that late goal against Leicester as well. From an Ipswich perspective though, really impressed with them so far this season. They've taken the Championship by storm so far, 12 points on the board from their opening 5 matches, the way they've been playing, the amount of chances they've been creating, and yeah, what a way to flip this game on its head. It was a thumping finish by Broadhead to get them back into it, and then 2 quite scrappy finishes by Ladapo to go ahead and flip the game on its head. From a Cardiff perspective, what could be the make or break for Errol Bullock is their game right after the international break, that South Wales derby against the Swansea side who haven't been in great form of late, so I'm already looking forward to that one. Not had many goalless draws in the Championship so far this season, but the only goalless draw we had this weekend was between Leeds and Sheffield Wednesday, typically after I predicted Leeds to blow Sheffield Wednesday away with their attacking power, but it didn't quite happen in this game. Credit to Wednesday, thought they dug in, defended quite well, frustrated Leeds for large portions of this match, and actually had a few chances of their own. Josh Windass probably having the best chance, but he couldn't finish off that one-on-one. From a Leeds perspective, obviously they were treated to that 7-goal thriller against Ipswich, but this was probably another example of how much work still needs to be done on this Leeds squad, sort of on the training ground, to get them properly up to speed with how Farke wants to use them long term. Obviously no Sinisterra there anymore, but there were a few flashes of quality from the likes of Somerville and Nonto out wide. From Perot though, there wasn't that much to shout about, didn't seem to be that involved in this one. So for Wednesday, I think it was absolutely crucial that they got at least a point on the board heading into this international break, and for Leeds just a bit of a frustrating Championship affair really. Hull were top today, best performance I've seen from them in a very long time. The atmosphere in the away end was incredible, couldn't hear myself think for the entire game. Love that sort of thing when it is a bouncing away end. I'd have to admit, a brilliant 3 points here for Hull. There was a feeling that eventually Leicester just about getting themselves over the line, and those performances that hadn't quite lived up to expectations so far, given the results they'd had, would eventually catch up to them, and ultimately I think that's what we got to see in this game. Credit to Hull, handled it very well. Liam Delap with another goal. I think Delap's shown more in these first 5 matches for Hull than he did in the entirety of last season while out on loan at both Preston and Stoke. But cracking finish, and Leicester just wasn't their day in front of goal. They had 21 shots in this game, but just 1 on target. Now there were moments of this game where Hull had to ride their luck, Leicester hitting the post and squandering a few good opportunities. But overall, really well managed away performance from Liam Rossini's side. I think that's when they're really in their element, when they grab an early goal and they've got something to hang on to. Bit of a setback for Leicester, and I still think they've got quite a bit of work to do over this international break in terms of becoming a more cohesive side, but had you offered Leicester fans 12 points from their first 5 matches, I'm sure they would have taken that. A concerning slow start for Borough. Seems like the match reflected our season so far, and I think that's a fair comment. A lot of Middlesbrough matches so far this season have followed along a similar sort of template, and it seemed like this loss against QPR was reading off the same script. Once again, Middlesbrough got into some decent areas in the final third, 16 shots, 9 of them being on target. No goals to show for it ultimately. Begovic, I thought, had a very good game in net for QPR, but the away side handled themselves really quite well in this one. QPR, who themselves have been on the receiving end of some quite tight matches that they were quite unfortunate not to get any points from, are deserving 3 points in this game to take taken to the international break. An absolute peach of a goal to open the scoring by Andre Dazelle, and then Jack Colback wrapping it up in the second half. From a Middlesbrough perspective, I mean, this has been a staggeringly slow start to this season. They will go into this international break sat bottom of the Championship after Wednesday picked up that point. And just to put it into context of how slow this Middlesbrough start has actually been, we all knew that last season they didn't start well under Chris Wilder. Well, at this same stage last season, Middlesbrough had 2 more points than they do now. They'd scored 4 more goals and they conceded 2 less goals than they had at this stage. All of that paints the picture that things aren't all of that paints a quite worrying and damning picture for Borough after 5 matches. This weekend we also saw Plymouth getting back to winning ways, and what a way to go ahead and do so, beating Blackburn by 3-0. Really yet to see a match of this Plymouth side this season where I've not been thoroughly entertained. Even in that goalless draw they had with Watford, still plenty of chances at either end of the pitch. And I mean, Blackburn will be ruining some of their own missed chances in this game, because they certainly had created enough to at least warrant a point from this match. Actually finished with an XG higher than that of Plymouth, 1.49. It just didn't fall for them in the final third. But credit to this Plymouth side, obviously winless since the opening day, so it was important to flip around that momentum heading into this next international break. Some nice goals and an overall successful afternoon. Joseph says, as a Norwich fan, I'm so disappointed about the result and performance after all the good work that's been put in. You must be loving it though, Ben. Preston at the summit. Hey, we'll get to talking about Preston in just a minute. From a Norwich perspective, this game was under par, especially considering what we've come to expect from this side so far this season. Just a bit of a bad day at the office, especially when you consider that leading up to this game, Norwich were averaging an XG per 90 of 2.23, and as you can see the creative stats on screen there, Norwich weren't quite at their creative best in this one. Credit to Rotherham though, thought they stuck to their game plan really well for this game. Excellent opening goal, then Jordan Hugill was always going to get on the score sheet against his former side. Johnny Rowe does well for the Norwich goal to work that one for them to get back into it, but ultimately it was just a consolation in the end. From a Rotherham perspective, I think it was really important they got that first win of the season prior to this international break. They didn't want to be going into this still winless. And to be fair to Rotherham, I think it was about time that luck sort of swung their way a little bit after they'd been on the receiving end of a couple of tight matches of late. So good win for Rotherham. From a Norwich perspective, bad day at the office, but had you offered Norwich fans 10 points from their opening 5 matches, I think they all would have taken that at the start of the season. Stoke Van Dan says, your defence was like a brick wall today. Fair play to your lads, Ben. I have to say that was the first thing that really stood out to me in this performance against Stoke. Defensively, we were absolutely rock solid in this one. And I mean, looking at the lineup going into this one, it did look fairly defensive. It seemed like we came with that game plan to Stoke to be solid, not give many chances away, and ultimately look to open up the game in the second half, and that's exactly how things unfolded. Ryan Lowe got it absolutely spot on with the substitutions to introduce Dwayne Holmes in the second half, give us a little bit more pace running in behind. Absolutely worked to a T. Dwayne Holmes came on, had an immediate impact, creates a chance for Wilkeen, then goes on to win that penalty. Was a little bit soft, but the Stoke man does dangle his leg, doesn't get anything on the ball, and so gives the referee that decision to make, and then Wilkeen and Holmes combine for the second goal as well. From that point onwards though, Stoke really crank up the pressure. They get the ball in some decent areas, deliver some threatening crosses, but we weren't letting anything get past us in this game, and now top of the Championship. I'm certainly not getting carried away. We're only 5 games in, and there will be bigger tests to come for North End throughout this season. But what's most impressive from this start, from a Preston North End point of view, is how we've done it with so many first team players missing. Let's not forget we've still got the likes of Ben Whiteman, Emil Rees, Ched Evans, Robbie Brady, Calvin Ramsey, and the 2 new deadline day signings, all to throw into this Preston squad at some point. So the fact that Lowe's been dealing with all that, we've been so compact defensively, and we've really picked our moments to go forward, and we have been clinical. Wilkeen, I think, has proven to be an absolute gem of a signing so far, as has Holmes. So yeah, from a North End perspective, absolutely no complaints right now. Good 3 points on the board. From a Stoke perspective, pretty frustrated, I'm sure. Still quite a bit of work to do to get that whole 11 to gel right now. A few changes that Alex Neil was forced into making in this game, and lacking Vidigal in the final third, I thought definitely told as well. George, who's a Huddersfield fan, says our first win of the season at last. Absolutely amazing today. Yeah, it was a long time coming, but finally Neil Warnock's men claiming their first 3 points of the season, and just in time heading into this upcoming international break. I thought that West Brom had sort of recaptured that spark with that performance against Middlesbrough, putting 4 goals past them in that game, but a few sloppy mistakes ultimately led to them losing this one. 2 goals that Alex Palmer probably won't be all too happy about conceding, both in at the near post. Obviously, West Brom had to work to get back into this via that goal by John Swift, only for Jack Redoney to pop up with a sucker punch in the 96th minute. Definitely still think there's a long way for this Huddersfield side to go, but what a way to get your first win of the season. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do get your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, make sure to stay tuned and subscribe for some regular Championship content, and I'll see you all in the next one.